Donald Trump has just announced that he's cutting checks for January 6th rioters, people that have been convicted of assaulting police officers, storming the Capitol, threatening to hang the vice president, and his defenders had to try and go on CNN's Newsnight and try and justify and explain the reason as to why that's fine. Now watch what happens when the entire panel descends into chaos, because when you can't defend things, you deflect, you interrupt, and you eventually fall apart. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Dean in for Abby Phillip on this Friday night. And tonight, an about face from President Trump. That nearly $1.8 billion fund the Justice Department is creating to compensate victims of alleged weaponized prosecution. Well, Trump appears to want credit for it, despite saying this all week.
It's been very well received, I have to tell you. I know very little about it. I wasn't involved in the whole creation of it and the negotiation.
I released them from the lawsuit, and I guess they made a settlement of some kind. I wasn't involved in the settlement. I could have been involved, but I didn't choose to be. So they made a settlement.
But now on Truth Social, he says he gave up a lot of money to allow that fund to go forward, adding, quote, "I am helping others who were so badly abused by an evil, corrupt, and weaponized Biden administration receive, at long last, justice." But we're learning just how frustrated Senate Republicans are with the administration after that fund derailed plans to pass a major immigration enforcement package. Senator Ted Cruz gave some insight on how poorly a closed-door meeting with Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche went. Here's what he said.
Fiery does not begin to cut it. There are probably 45 senators in the room. At least half of them were blasting the Attorney General, and they were pissed. Basically, the message they said is, you know what? We were going to pass reconciliation this week. We were going to fund all of ICE, all of CBP, all of Border Control. And then you announced this judgment fund. The Republican senators were pissed. People were, the entire meeting, they were screaming at the acting attorney general.
And that all comes as the administration faces its second legal challenge, this time with a number of plaintiffs signing on to the lawsuit. They argue Trump's initial IRS case that led to the fund was meritless, and the fund itself is unconstitutional for bypassing Congress's power of the purse. We're joined now at the table by our 5 guests. Great to have all of you on this Friday night. So here we are. I just laid it out. We've had this week of Trump saying that he had given up so that these others could have access to this fund. Now he's saying something a little bit different, and it has been fascinating to see what is playing out on Capitol Hill with Senate Republicans. Ashley, I'll start first with you. What have you been tracking as all of this has been happening?
Well, first, the fund is just a bad idea. It is disrespectful to police officers. It's disrespectful to our Constitution. It's one thing. He has the power of the pardon until he pardoned those people. Okay, I disagreed with it. It's another thing to give them reparations, basically, for assaulting our democracy and police officers. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the acting attorney general, if he is appointed to potentially be the attorney general, he will have to get confirmed by the Senate, and it sounds like 45 of them would never confirm him for his current behavior. So that's not good politics for Donald Trump. And the third is the Senate finally is standing up, but still standing up in private. Like, you have to come. You can't talk smack behind closed doors and not be willing to do it in front. And so I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're disappointed, but stand up, have courage, and shut this down and get control of the leader of your party right now who is off the rails.
Mitch McConnell had pretty pointed words about it, though.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, but he's been had pointed words.
He did.
Yeah,
I actually,
like
he's like, I'm out.
So
Yeah.
some of them are, like,
he said, so the nation's top law enforcement official is asking for a slush fund to pay people who assault cops. Utterly stupid, morally wrong, take your pick. That was Mitch McConnell, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Republicans are so upset about this tells you how controversial it is. Now, I mean, I can argue the other side of it. You know, the executive branch has broad authority to settle lawsuits involving the federal government. It's highly unprecedented. You know, there hasn't been anyone that's benefited from this yet. I hope it's not January 6th rioters. It very well will be, but no one knows. I mean, we have just as little information about who it's going to benefit as who it's going to not.
But that lies the root of the problem, is that we will never know. Well,
we don't know it all.
We know the first
Let's
person
find
who put
out
a claim
who
in.
benefits.
The first person who put a claim in was Michael Caputo, a friend of mine.
But we
for
also
a decade.
know.
Let me finish. Michael Caputo was investigated for a decade, stemming from the Russia collusion hoax, all coming from a Steele dossier funded by the Clinton campaign. He was bankrupted. His family was made, his family, just to put it as a personal
they
friend,
do not have to
his
release
family
the
was
names
put in a
of
horrible
everybody that gets
position,
payment in
and
this
he had
fund.
to sell his house to pay for the legal defense fund. So if he gets compensation, I'm happy about
They
this.
do not have
he
to
did not
release
do anything
the
wrong,
names
and
of everyone that gets a
he
payment.
is someone who suffered. So he's the first victim. I am
wait a
for it.
second.
If
Hold
we
on.
get into people that assaulted cops on January 6th, yeah, I think
But
that's
you won't
ridiculous.
know.
I think that's absurd.
I think everyone, is it fair to
That's the
say
problem.
everyone at this table is against anyone who assaulted a cop?
Oh, well,
Yeah, I think it's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
But the root of the
I
issue
go
is
further,
the
though.
very simple fact that there is a fund, a $1 billion fund that's created, and you will not know who gets payment from it, and it's completely controlled by the executive branch. You don't think that that's absolutely absurd?
I mean, do you support people having the right to file lawsuits?
They already have that
know.
right.
Prosecution?
Yeah,
That happened.
people who have been wronged by the justice system already have avenues for recourse. What's going on here is that the president sued his own government
Himself.
and then negotiated with himself and settled with himself and is now going to use taxpayer money and force Congress to pay the people who attacked Congress.
Right.
Which is a humiliation of the Congress. That's why they're angry because Trump is humiliating
Does
Republican
Michael
senators,
Caputo,
including
does
by...
Michael Caputo deserve
Listen,
compensation?
yeah.
Why are you
This is
so
not
obsessed
about
with Michael
me.
Caputo? This has nothing to do with it.
He is the first.
What this has
the
to
first
do
person
with
who applied.
is the
He's
fact
the first
that
person.
He's
the only name we know, actually.
we won't
That's
know
the problem.
every name that gets a payment from this
We
fund.
know
This
one.
is our
We know
taxpayer
one.
dollars.
We know one.
Is he gonna be the only
He
one?
said
How
it
do you know?
himself, right?
Yeah.
He disclosed.
Yes, we
Yeah.
know, and we know one person right now. And does that person, is he owed compensation?
What about-
I think
he
it's
just
clear
disclosed
that he is.
But to
himself.
Isaiah's point, that's the reason we know, is because he said he did apply, right?
Yes, he's
There
been
are
over
also
this.
people who have said they are going to file claims that put axes through the window of the Capitol. There are people who smoked marijuana in the Capitol. There are people who are going to put claims to this. But I think the question is, why this fund?
Yeah.
Why now?
But why
And
now?
we can. That is the issue.
What most Republican senators are really pissed off about is the timing, right? They just started the primaries. This is the point where lawmakers right now, have to worry about how they look.
Yes.
They have to worry
Joe, I'll
about
give you-
scandal and what they and all of a sudden Trump is creating the biggest scandal of the administration at the worst possible time for them, while attacking their leaders and unseating
Joe, I'll
John
give-
Gordon,
let me give-
unseating Bill Cassidy, all to the detriment of his party. So
Nasty.
he's,
It would
Let
have
me
been
give
great.
you-
It
let
would
me
have been
give you-
great to see some of
well,
those
the
Republican
Republicans are at
senators
war with
have
themselves
some
and-
fire in their belly over DOJ stuff when it was a crossfire hurricane, when it was
But wait
going
a second, let's
after
stay focused
pro-life
here.
groups, when they were filing lawsuits in New York over Trump's real
But
estate
let
claim.
me ask
That
you
would have been a
something.
great time for the Senate to have
Joe.
some fire in their belly over DOJ misdeeds.
it's just amazing that the president of the
let me
United
give
States
you-
could put
let me give you
personal
another name.
vendettas.
Hang on,
Hold-
let's hey, go ahead.
Let me give you another name that J.D. Vance said would be eligible. Tina Peters, an absolute thug that was convicted of a crime and is sitting inside a prison. Do you think that Tina Peters, as J.D. Vance has said, should be eligible to get our taxpayer dollars?
I think she has a right to apply. I think there's a panel, a 5-person panel. If she can make the case before them, I think she should have a
That's
case.
absurd.
I think she should make
What
a clear
about
case
That's
people-
for it.
let me
precisely
ask
why
you a
this
question.
fund is absurd.
What about
the fact that
people-
we will not know.
What about people who have served extreme sentences for drug prosecutions, and now it is clear that the crack to cocaine ratio has been redistributed? Are they eligible for this? Because they have been.
In Trump 1.0, you recall, he did the most
He did the first
significant
step back,
prison
yes,
and justice reform.
yes,
So I think
but
his
that
administration
wasn't-
has a
this-
history
this-
of being more lenient against people who have been perhaps convicted of crimes.
So you think that those individuals
I just
who have
want to know
been.
about Tina
I think it
Peters.
would be smart if the administration did put forth some ideas of Democrats who are victims of lawfare. I mean, that would get Democrats really mixed up over this. I bet they'd defend it.
And do you? But
the
can I just
whole
ask
thing
like
is so
can I-
legally unsound that
yes.
it's doubtful that it'll ever actually materialize because it's probably illegal, and the fact is that Congress has the power to appropriate.
But can I
Stop
just?
Trump.
I can just ask a real.
you know,
Trump,
the
though.
Supreme Court
Go
has
ahead,
stopped.
Can I just ask like a real? I like we're doing all these hypotheticals. Do you really think Donald Trump put this fund in place for people who are wrongly convicted of criminal justice for drug crimes? Do you really think he put this in place for your friend?
Yeah, I actually do.
I think there's
Michael Caputo. I think there's Carter Page. I think there's George Papadopoulos. None of these people. I'm answering your first question. You asked the question. I'm answering it. You have Mike Caputo, you have Carter Page, you have George Papadopoulos. All these people never convicted of any crimes, had their life shattered, had their life ruined. There should be some revenue for their compensation.
But let me just say this. You said 10 years, right?
And again, I think Trump calculated this, right? He knew this was going to get dragged into January 6th, all that. I think he's made the calculation. You think this has nothing to do with January 6th? I think he's made the calculation that anyone who's still, crying about that is not going to be with him no matter what.
Well, I'm sorry.
And I think that extends to a lot of the U.S. Senate. As you pointed out, the primary's coming up. This is not about the primary for them.
Okay, so I do want to ask about hang on. I want to ask about the political piece of this, kind of what Josh was getting at, which is you can't talk about this in the vacuum without acknowledging what we've seen with Bill Cassidy, John Cornyn in Texas with that primary coming up. What Trump's doing, and we've talked about how his lock on the primaries is still incredible.
Yeah,
his power. But when you have the sitting senators there who he's now turning against, what does that mean for him politically in the moment?
I think this is what drives the base crazy, right? You had that comment from Ted Cruz, and the part that stood out to me the most was, you know what? We're pissed. We're not going to fund Border Patrol. We're not going to fund ICE. We're not going to do reconciliation. We're going to go home for 2 weeks. That, to me, is a bigger scandal than what Trump's even trying to do. They're just butthurt, and they're not going to pass reconciliation.
They're trying to save their careers.
Literally, Ted Cruz said they're butthurt.
They're up for an election, and they have to finally respond to voters, and they also want to placate Trump, and he's making doing both of those things completely impossible for them.
But it's $1.8 billion for a slush fund.
He's putting all the Republican senators in no win position, making them spend millions of dollars that they otherwise wouldn't have had to spend, and putting their majority in play, which is directly against their interests and his interests.
So their response is to not do what
vendetta.
Their response
They're right on the politics.
Not what their constituents want, right?
No.
Fund
Their constituents want
a $1.8 billion
fund reconciliation.
I think the reason why they're not doing it.
So look, then we have Trump on Truth Social. Tom Tillis, he was attacking too. People don't remember that Tom Tillis, the weak and ineffective senator from the great state of North Carolina, when I told him that I would not under any circumstances endorse him, he immediately quit the race and publicly announced he was going to retire. I said, wow, great news, that was easy. The media said how brave he was to take me on, but he wasn't brave. He was just the opposite. He was a quitter. Again, down the road, Trump may have success with the people he's selecting to try to take these seats. But in the moment, Tom Tillis still has a very powerful vote. So does John Cornyn. So do, especially when you're doing reconciliation where you need all the Republicans on board.
And Tom Massey, who will be in Congress for the rest of the year.
Yes.
And if you just think, again, Trump has put his personal vendettas above his own political agenda, the congressional Republicans' ability to keep control of either House of Congress, the American national interest for another thing, the American economy, and he's very clear about it. He's very open about it. And we've never had a situation where the president will say, my personal vengeance is more important than the party's fate or even the agenda.
And I just don't think, I really don't think, I understand I respect the ability to stand by the person that is the Republican president. But I really think, just unpartisan advice, that this fund, if they vote for it, will backfire on every single. And if you thought that Democrats were going to have a victory in November around the midterms before, this vote would probably get them 60 seats if possible. They would get such a wide margin in the House. And it probably would make people so frustrated that the governor's races, the attorney general races, the secretary of state races, the state house races, and 2028, Republicans would still face the backlash because everyone can see what this fund is. This fund is retribution for Donald Trump. This fund is for January 6ers. And the country was very clear that that day is something they never want to see again.
And it's terrible politics.
And yes.
Joe, can I ask you about Texas?
You got to wrap it up.
And fiscally irresponsible. And fiscally irresponsible. I thought y'all were
Trump killed John Cornyn. Was that a good idea for Republicans?
I'll let
banger.
What'd you say,
banger?
All right, up next.
So, did you guys see at the top of the clip where you saw Donald Trump say in the video that he didn't know anything about the January 6th slush fund? I want you guys to think about anything that Donald Trump has been involved in and also how Donald Trump moves. A lot of the things that Michael Cohen said the absolute clown that he is. He even said Donald Trump would do things, but he would distance himself from it so that he never ever got caught up in the politics of it. That's exactly what it is that he'd do. And that's exactly what's happened here. It's no secret that Todd Blanche, Donald Trump, who was once Donald Trump's personal attorney, now is Donald Trump's attorney general. Sorry, I shouldn't say Donald Trump's. He's the attorney general for the United States of America, and he's still doing Donald Trump's bidding. There's no mistake in that whatsoever. And the reality is, Republicans, as well as everybody across the United States of America, they should be absolutely enraged at this. But like Ashley said, Ashley Simpson, I believe her name is, these guys need to be enraged out in the open. Being enraged behind closed doors means absolutely nothing. And the reason as to why is because people need to see that you're frustrated, and they need to see you standing up to Donald Trump. This $1.8 billion is taxpayers' money. Now, if you take a look at what's already taking place in the United States, the cost of living is through the roof. Gas is at astronomical prices. People are struggling to put food on the table. Donald Trump is waging a war in Iran that was not necessary, which has shot up the prices all around the entire world. He's building or wanting to build a massive ballroom. He's wanting to build an ark. All these things built all and around his name. And now he wants a $1.8 billion slush fund as retribution for the people who were fighting for him on January 6th. But this is the same administration that don't have money for healthcare. They don't have money for childcare. They don't have money to help Americans that are really struggling. I said it in the beginning, and I will say it here today. This administration are out of touch with reality, and it's clear as day to see. The fact that people actually believe that these multimillionaires and multi-billionaires were going to fight for them, the average common individual, is absolutely absurd. And it's just embarrassing that the humiliation ritual has to continue, and Republicans have to come on screen and try and justify and defend Donald Trump's foolishness. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below in regards to this clip. As you guys are down there, do the usual stuff. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the bell notification. Appreciate you guys. And as usual, I'll see you guys in the next one.